Good morning. My name is Specialist Dixon, and today I will be briefing you on interpersonal communications. The classification for this briefing is unclassified. The overall risk assessment is low. I have exit signs on the left and right of me, but in the event of emergency, we will move calmly, move in an orderly fashion, and move to the safest location. So the purpose of this brief is to brief you on interpersonal communications and the different types of communications. To start, what are interpersonal communications? Interpersonal communications is the transferring of information and emotions between people by using nonverbal and verbal means. This is usually a face-to-face interaction, but it can be seen in written communications. When talking about interpersonal communications, we aren't necessarily focused on the message itself, but we're focused on the emotions and the feelings that follow with the message. Some things that help us pick up on this would be body languages, hand gestures, but we will cover that later on in the brief. Something to be mindful of, we have to be aware of how the receiver receives the message and how the receiver receives the message. So as I mentioned, I will cover the three types of communications. The first communication would be verbal communication. Verbal communication is the most direct and the most effective way to communicate with people. It's also the most common. These will be your face-to-face interactions, how I'm doing so with you. The next communication would be nonverbal. Nonverbal communications would be those body gestures, facial cues, facial expressions, and etc. For example, moving your hands while talking. Something to be mindful of, moving your hands while talking can be a conscious and unconscious thing, so it's best to avoid it while speaking. The third and final communication is written communication. Written communication is pretty self-explanatory. It will be your emails and your text messages. With interpersonal communications, there's a common misconception between people. People believe that communication is a one-way street, meaning there's a sender sending out a message, and then there's only a receiver receiving a message, but this is wrong. Communication involves two people, meaning it's a two-way street. The sender and the receiver are both sending messages back at the same time. This can be seen with common communication between people, body languages, nodding and agreeing, nodding and disagreeing, or something as small as crossing your arms, showing that you're unattentive. Functional communication skills are required because communication is the connectivity between people. But what happens when these skills are not present? Lacking interpersonal communications leads to a negative work environment and leads to low productivity. When productivity is low, morale tends to be low as well. Organizations such as the Army desire to have a positive workplace. So to have a positive workplace, there must be active communication skills present. We use interpersonal communication skills on a daily basis in our military careers. For example, say if a soldier comes to you and approaches you with a problem, how are you going to solve this problem? It takes good interpersonal communication skills to assess the problem and empathize with the soldier and solve the problem right then and there. How do we improve interpersonal communication skills? Well, as I mentioned before, it's a two-way street, meaning that it involves two people. It's not just a one-person ordeal. We have to be willing and able to have communications with people. We also have to be nice and friendly, meaning that we have to be open to have conversations with others. For example, say if I approach my sergeant and he has his arms crossed, my initial thought would think he's not willing to listen to what I'm saying as a junior enlisted soldier. And this turns me off from the sergeant as a whole. As a leader, my soldiers rely on me for guidance. So I have to be open and willing to talk to them with my problems. If my soldier can't rely on me, then who can my soldier rely on? Being open-minded is the first step to improving interpersonal communication skills. A key element of verbal communication will be tone. Tone affects our overall meaning in our words more than we ever tend to believe. For example, take the statement, "I did not show up late to PT." It's a simple statement. But if you emphasize any word within this statement, it would change the whole meaning of the whole sentence. Let's try it. For example, "I did not show up late to PT" means that I personally didn't show up late to PT, somebody else did. Or "I did not show up late to PT" means I did not show up late to PT, I possibly showed up early. Try changing around your tone in your everyday sentences and see how great of a difference it is. A key element in nonverbal communication will be body language. Something as simple as standing up in your chair and holding your head up high shows a great difference than slouching and having your arms across. Sitting upright in your chair shows that you're proud and confident. But if you're slouched over, it means you're unattentive and you have lack confidence. Another key element of nonverbal communication, in addition to body language, will be eye contact. Eye contact shows that you're attentive to the person and you're actively listening. Mastery over body language and eye contact means that you have a good understanding of nonverbal communication. As a leader, you may feel like you're good at communicating, but we are always willing to change and learn new things. Throughout today's brief, our brief interpersonal communications and its importance also covered the 3 types of communications, which were verbal, nonverbal, and written communications. And this concludes my brief. I would like to ask 2 questions of the group. The first question would be, what are the 3 types of communications? My second question would be, what are interpersonal communications? At this time, I would like to ask, are there any questions of me? If not, have a good day.